another video in my series of full videos and stubs, I stole that from Wikipedia, of large bore, weird, and usually non-lethal. Today's weird large bore quote-unquote weapon, usually non-lethal, is the Hilton multi-purpose gun. A very British device. It's a single-shot, smoothbore, less than lethal British grenade launcher, because that's not a contradiction in terms. Britain, like many countries, has a schizophrenic attitude towards anything firearmish, so this is not a surprise. It came with barrels and or inserts that would allow you to do multiple calibers. And if you're not aware of it, making a gun in many countries, Britain is an exception mostly, but this may have been allowed. Making a gun in the United States and many other countries is based on not the barrel or the chamber the cartridge goes in, which is the part that makes it able to work. It's based on the trigger, firing pin, and a bunch of other stuff that's the rest of it. The reason for that is not because that's not really the gun, it's that that's the part that wears out and has to be replaced. Putting a serial number on a part you can easily replace is a bad idea. So, what was this one able to do? It started off being one of many of the diameters I'm going to give you, or chamberings, and then would use an insert to make something smaller, or you'd change out the barrel to the larger one. Whichever one it was sold with or shipped with that was considered the primary bore or usage, depending on whether it's civilian or military, would be stamped first, and then the other bore diameters might be listed after, or it might just do them in size order or something. 1.5 inch or 1 inch bore. That's 37 or 38 millimeter, or 25 or 26.5 millimeter flares. Now this can be other things as well. As you might imagine, there's some variance in it. You can get away with sticking something else in it. But it was propelling mostly those diameter of flare or non-violent rounds. And then it goes off the rails. There's also lethal rounds for those. It's not just a potato cannon. Don't get hit by a potato cannon. Next thing is, it would include an insert or a barrel, usually an insert, 12 gauge, full-on real shotgun barrels. And it was made on purpose to make it to where it was extremely functional, could be left in and left in that mode of behavior. Just like in the United States, converting a caliber on a barrel by just changing the barrel or putting an insert in is not considered altering the lower receiver, which is the part that carries all of the designations, as long as you do it in such a way that you end up with what would be a perfectly legal gun in that configuration. Long barrel, buttstock, it's a gun. 5.56 NATO, because screw it, let's just fire actual rounds. And then finally, 40 millimeter by 46 millimeter and variations of this. Grenades, just a fucking grenade launcher. Just fuck it. Obviously, if it came with that barrel, or started off with that barrel, which is the largest diameter listed, then it would be considered, in the United States, a destructive device, $200 tax stamp, all that shit. And each individual grenade would be considered a destructive device because it's a fucking grenade. And in the British military way of doing it, it would, obviously that would be the one for the military usage. For civilian or police usage, it's probably a 37 to 38 millimeter barrel. Now, what is unique about this gun that would be worth of having a Wikipedia article, and why isn't it there? Nothing. This is a unique item. If you're not aware of it, when making movies and television shows, one of the things you want to do, especially if you want to film everywhere, is start off with something that's the least regulatable thing in the planet. And in some places, you get BB guns regulated more than a flare launcher or a grenade launcher. Some of them are called grenade launchers even though they don't have grenades for them anywhere. I mean, literally, you can buy a grenade launcher because, if you can buy it, there aren't any available grenades. They're just other things. Smoke bombs, bird bombs, chalk rounds, stuff to fuck around with. And also beanbag rounds and rubber slugs and wooden slugs, which is military and police only, but it's the ammunition that does it. You're still allowed to buy it. Please realize that the 1-inch bore, aka 4-gauge pistol that is used commonly on larger boats out at sea for high-altitude parachutes, flares, was originally a full-on firearm for shooting shit tons of birds. But the really short Derringer that really wouldn't be practical for that isn't made to do that. It doesn't stop you, or even legally encumber you, from being stupid enough to load a live round in it, but you can't load the one that was made for it, because at that point it's really being used that way. but there's also no restriction on building a long gun that way. This being starting off a long gun, it would have virtually no restrictions on it. Yes, the 1-inch bore would fire still available British 4-gauge shotgun slugs and shells. I wouldn't want to, but you get the idea. Now, what's unique about it? What's special about it? Noteworthy? The lack of noteworthiness. On the Internet Movie Database, they have lists of movies. There's a complimentary version of that that's unofficial. That's the Internet Movie Firearms Database, because guns are used in a lot of movies and people are curious about them. There's also one for gadgets, toys that are found in videos and movies. This also includes video games, too. The Hilton multi-purpose gun is the only one that I can find that has one movie using it. This is the kind of thing you would imagine Harley Quinn in one of the movies shooting. And she should. And I want her to, because it'd be awesome. There's only one movie this thing has been in. It's totally unused. No video games. Nothing. I'm going to make it my goal to make a video game just so I can put it in it. I'm going to make mock-ups out of plastic and ask people to put it in a movie. I'm going to make it perfect. Why? Why is waptek obsessed with video games and flare guns? PUBG. Do you speak it? But it's not PUBG. Flare guns are very commonly used. I'm from a group of people in Portland that would do Star Wars-style movie making. We would start off with things that looked normal, boring, and make them into something else. A movie I got to help do a prop for used the thingy for putting gasoline in your car, and it was a weapon. It was also a spaceship in one other scene. I didn't alter it, we just filmed it as a spaceship. Put LEDs on it. I have a history of doing this stuff. You're welcome. If you've ever seen that thing, I don't even know the name of it. It was done entirely in Japanese. We had it dubbed. We did it bad English, and then they muted it, and then they did it. If you watched it on Japanese TV, hi, it's my fault. So anyway, but the point about this is, this has never been in a video game or movie? Not even a music video? Not even a porn? I just thought this was funny. It's like, it looks perfect for as a battle rifle in Star Wars. Why isn't it in it? And the thing is, I'm not kidding. If you look up any flare gun, any of the guns like this that can fire non-lethal and is used primarily for non-lethal, anybody uses it for that? You'll find dozens of movies it's in, but this one isn't. There are Mattel toys with more movie entries. In fact, there's a squirt gun category, because of course there is. So anyway, now I want to point out a couple of interesting things here. Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't have an entry for it. That's normal. I mean, it's literally not noteworthy at all. But because it's so unused, it might be interesting. But every article on the grenade or flare cartridge they have is annoying me because it doesn't have accurate information about the cartridge, the guns, any damn thing. So I'm announcing, if anybody's not aware of it, I've been trolling Wikipedia again. They let me edit again. Excuse me, I did that wrong. I am going to be editing the living shit out of pages that have been abandoned and orphaned because nobody cares about them. There's a few people, very few, on Wikipedia that wait for somebody to edit one of these old abandoned pages so they can delete it just to spite them. Specifically about firearms, certain TV shows, whatever. They are not super fans, they're super anti-fans. Some of them, somebody is responsible on Wikipedia someplace for getting rid of the 12-gauge shotgun article. Well, it's not noteworthy, but it's the default shotgun shell in America. Exactly why they deleted it. So now it just says shotgun shells or bore or something, but it doesn't say 12-gauge. And if you click the 12-gauge link, it doesn't tell you anything about 12 gauges. It just mentions that it's the most popular. And then if you look in the talk section, why isn't there a separate article for the most commonly used one? But there is one for 410, which is not really that common, and also 20 gauge, which is truly not that, well, some of you don't even know what I'm talking about, 20 gauge and 410. I had to edit the 20 gauge article just to put the correct information in because it was wrong. Someone went in there and trolled and edited bad information in. When they came back after I put in a complete answer, someone banned them and all 5 or 6 of their sock puppet accounts for doing it. There are people out there who literally just put in the wrong information to fuck with people, including putting in the wrong information that might get someone hurt. Yes, I'm a little angry. So I'm going to militantly edit most of the Wikipedia links about large bore, weird, and usually non-lethal cartridges and devices, because I'm getting fed up with this. So anyway, that's why I did the video, mostly because this is a stub about the Hilton multi-purpose gun, aka what I call a universal lower receiver for firearms experimentation, or universal street legal lower receiver for a gun, which is usually just a single shot or maybe a double barrel or whatever. I wanted to make an omni-usable one for anything you want to put on it. This one comes really close. Again, it had replaceable barrels, and you could put barrel inserts. For those of you who aren't aware of it, the ATF had to acknowledge several times over 10 years that it's not illegal for you to take a pistol-shaped item, it's a flare gun, that's made out of metal, and the only diameter it can be is 1 inch or bigger, and put an insert, which literally consists of several layers of different pipe diameters, or plastic, and put a normal barrel in there and use a pistol-length barrel, as long as it's rifled. Much to the chagrin of people in certain states that decided, we're going to regulate flare guns just like a real gun because someone might put a bullet in it. Okay, by regulating something and redefining a flare gun as a real firearm, go ahead. And they say, you're daring us. So they did it, like Jersey or whatever. Okay, you're regulating it like a firearm. Yes, and I have to have a firearm permit, a permit like I have a normal pistol. Yes, which means I have the right to fire pistol cartridges. No, you don't. You're charging me a tax. You're regulating it as a handgun, but you won't let me use it as a handgun. That's like regulating my car as an automobile, but deciding to declare that it's a bicycle. I'm not allowed to drive it at freeway speed. We don't want you to drive that one because we don't like that model. No. This actually went to court enough that the ATF had to intervene and say, no, if you regulate it as a handgun, legally speaking, you've given them permission to load it as one. Now, this didn't really stick. They made up some convoluted bullshit reason, but like California does. But the point is, the ATF had to come out in defense of people being able to expediently take a flare gun, stick a piece of pipe in it, several layers, don't make it 12 gauge, and fire pistol cartridges out of it. Meanwhile, there's me over here looking up every single ultra-large bore cartridge that I could legally load in it, and then sending in the ATF request, which they haven't responded to. They're like, we're not going to tell this guy an answer. Fuck him. But I find it entertaining the ATF actually came out in defense of people being allowed to exploit something they're being regulated. Well, we're doing this to restrict you. If you cause a law to exist to restrict people by saying you're doing it in the same way as something that's unrestricted, you've just unrestricted this. You can't say it's a firearm and not let us use it as a firearm. That doesn't make any fucking sense. We're declaring it a firearm, then I'm allowed to fire it. No, that's not acceptable. That's like saying I have to pay a $200 tax stamp for a overbore pistol, a 12-gauge pistol, but I'm not allowed to fire 12-gauge shells out of it. No, if you're going to regulate it that way, you're giving me permission to use it that way. The regulation is not a restriction that is being added. You're removing it by doing that. If I have to pay a $200 tax stamp, it's so that I'm allowed to do something, not so that I'm disallowed. So anyway, the Hilton multi-purpose gun, one of many so far like this. This is a special purpose one. The rest of them have all been people just converting things, but this was built on purpose with that in mind. So in Britain somewhere, someone owns one of these with a permit for an ordinary shotgun, and they can do whatever the hell they want. I just think that's funny. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. This has been a stub, not worth your time or anybody else's. I'll warn you in the title.